All right, so tonight we are taking a deep dive into, well, tonight's moon.
It is September 17th, 2024, so hopefully everyone listening has already had the chance to step outside for a moment and just look up.
I know, sometimes I need that reminder myself. It's easy to stay glued to our screens. But, tonight it seems like people are really interested in connecting with something, well, bigger.
And there's really nothing quite like the moon for that, is there?
I mean, talk about food for the soul. And tonight is a particularly stunning night for moon gazing, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. We are in for a real treat. Tonight, the moon is in its waxing gibbous phase.
Waxing gibbous. I gotta say, that always sounds so mysterious to me, like something straight out of a spell book. What does that actually mean, though, for those of us who maybe haven't studied astronomy?
Well, waxing simply means that the illuminated part of the moon that we can see is growing larger each night. It's on its way to becoming a full moon.
Ah, okay. So it's like it's waxing poetic, getting ready for a big show.
Exactly. And gibbous describes that rounded shape the moon takes on when it's almost but not quite full.
I see. So almost like a sneak peek, right? And speaking of this grand celestial show, tonight's waxing gibbous moon is going to be especially bright, with 99% illumination.
It really is incredible. And it's fascinating to think that throughout history, across cultures, humans have always been captivated by the moon and its phases.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, entire civilizations have based their calendars around the lunar cycle.
It really makes you think about how we experience time, doesn't it? Imagine each month being marked by the moon's journey.
That's incredible. Can you imagine? For millennia, people have looked up at this same moon, tracked its cycles. It's really quite humbling.
There's something so constant about it, yet always changing. And that's what makes the moon such a powerful symbol, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. A celestial clock, in a way, marking time on a cosmic scale. Speaking of which, our lunar friend is currently 14.05 days old in its cycle. What exactly does that mean? It's like the moon is on a road trip, and where are we in that journey?
You could say that. A 29.5-day road trip to be precise. We're catching it at mile marker 14, just before it reaches its full glory. Think of the new moon as the start, a fresh start, and now it's building to this grand finale.
We are right in the thick of it. And speaking of the gibbous, did you know this word actually has a really fascinating origin story?
Oh, it does. A story that takes us back to 14th century Latin and the word gibbosus, meaning humpbacked.
Humpback. Okay, now I am really picturing the moon with a little hunchback.
Right.
I get it, though. I see where they were going with that.
It is really a wonderfully descriptive word. If you think about that waxing gibbous moon, like a pie, that's almost entirely eaten, just a tiny sliver of darkness left, that illuminated part, it does kind of jut out a bit like a gentle hump.
I have never thought about it like that, but yeah, you are totally right. It's almost like it's tilting, showing off its sunlit side. So now I have to ask, besides giving us all a reason to brush up on our Latin, does this whole humpbacked stage have any, particular significance?
Well, every stage of the lunar cycle, it carries its own unique energy. But what's really interesting about the gibbous phase, whether it's waxing or waning, is that it represents this time of abundance, of nearing fullness.
Oh, interesting. So it's like the moon is really building towards something.
Exactly. And if you start to connect that to how different cultures have viewed the moon throughout history, well, that's when things get really interesting.
Okay, now you've got me hooked. Tell me more.
Well, for example, in many agricultural societies, the lunar cycle was really deeply tied to the rhythms of planting and harvesting. And that full moon, with its maximum illumination, that was often seen as a time for celebration and completion.
A lunar harvest festival.
Oh.
I love it.
Exactly. And the gibbous moon, in a way, well, it kind of represented this period of anticipation and preparation, a time to gather your resources and, make the most of all that increasing light.
So it's like as the moon gets closer to full, we should be gathering our own metaphorical harvests too.
Now, that is a beautiful way to put it. It's a good reminder that even though, our world today is all go, 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 these ancient cycles are still happening all around us, offering us a different way to connect with time and our place in it all.
It really makes you wonder what we might discover if we all just, remembered to look up every once in a while.
I know, right? And maybe, as you are looking up at that waxing gibbous moon tonight, you'll find yourself thinking about a question that humans have been pondering for centuries. Does the moon's shape, its cycle, does any of it actually have an impact on us down here on Earth?
It's a question that has fascinated people for, Well, since the dawn of time, hasn't it?
It really has.
And, even though these days we have science and we've explored so much of the cosmos, there's still something undeniably captivating about the moon and its presence in our lives. It just makes you wonder. It really is incredible when you think about all of those stories, all those beliefs that have been passed down for generations. Connecting the moon to the tides, to our emotions. It's fascinating.
It's easy to write it all off as folklore, but there's something to be said for that kind of observation. For centuries, humans observed the world around them, noticed these patterns, and lived their lives by them.
Exactly, and it's not like the moon is easy to ignore. It's this constant presence up there.
It is. Maybe even a reminder that we are part of something much, much bigger than ourselves. So tonight, as you're looking up at that waxing gibbous moon, take a moment and think. Have you noticed anything different as the moon has been approaching this full phase? A shift in energy, maybe?
Ooh, I like that. That's really something to think about. And if you're interested in tracking the moon's journey for the rest of the month, we've actually included a link to the September 2024 moon phases calendar
Yeah.
in our show notes for this episode.
A handy little guide. You can see exactly when that full moon is happening, when to expect a new moon. You'll be able to plan all your moonlit walks.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe if we all paid a little more attention to these cycles happening around us, we might even learn something about our own rhythms.
Now, wouldn't that be something? Harnessing a bit of that lunar energy for ourselves, for creativity, reflection, even just for connecting a little more deeply to ourselves and the world around us.
I love that thought. Well, on that note, I think we'll wrap up this deep dive. But remember, keep looking up and let that waxing gibbous moon inspire you this week.